Good afternoon, good evening to you. Welcome to coverage of this amazing motorsport festival here at Macau. And once again, we get things underway for day two with the Macau Grand Prix cars. They are lined up down in pit lane. We have just got the word to get things underway for free practice 2. Now, yesterday, we started the day with free practice 1 for the FIA FR World Cup, the Macau Grand Prix cars, and we finished the day with qualifying 1 over 40 minutes. In very difficult conditions yesterday. David Addison joins me in the commentary box. And yesterday's qualifying at the end of yesterday afternoon was very difficult. We started up tally marks for for session stoppages, and we got to 5, David. In 40 minutes, that reflected pretty tricky conditions.
Yes, and we were thinking that maybe people were going to go for a banker lap because they didn't know what the weather was going to be like today and needed to keep out of trouble, and it went completely the wrong way in that respect. There was quite a bit of damage, and we ended up in a situation where 3 drivers got a lap time in just before a red flag, but crucially before the weather deteriorated as well. So they were never dry laps, but they weren't as wet as the road then became, and it was pretty awful by the end of the session. And actually, Oliver Goethe, who was quickest in Q1, did go back out. He'd done a time the same for Tuka Tappinen, who was second fastest. They only had everything to lose. So this is the second free practice session. Won't affect the grid, but this is now the best track surface the drivers have had all weekend. They're going to go out on wets because it's not totally dry, and equally they only have 4 sets of Pirelli slicks. They don't want to waste those. Don't want to waste 1 set at least on a semi-dry circuit. So they'll go out, they'll have an explore, but I think it's going to be later in the session, and it's 40 minutes long when they do start to think about putting slicks on. What they need, and I say this without any optimism that it's going to be listened to, keep out of the wall. They need the mileage. But we said this yesterday, and caution was thrown to the 4 wins. But really, they need to now get into a rhythm, circulate, learn. There are lots of people here who are new to Macau. There are people in this entry who are new to an FR chassis, and there are some that are new to both. So the learning curve does need to be completed.
It's the second day that we've had damp conditions here at Macau, which means, very sadly, normally motorcycles start off the Thursday and the Friday here at Macau. But for 2 days, those sessions have been sort of held over, if you like. The motorcycles here at Macau do not go out onto the gear circuit if it's wet. They don't even have that as an option. They don't have wet tyres as an option. So there are only dry tyres. It would just be too tricky to have the motorcycles going around the gear circuit in wet conditions. So yesterday the decision was taken, a wet circuit, so the motorcycles will carry over, if you like, to this morning when they were going to qualify first thing this morning. That still hasn't happened, so we've still not had the motorcycles on circuit. All things being well, it's going to dry up as the day goes on today. That's the weather forecast. So at the end of today, we'll have the motorcycles. So the first things out on track on a very, very green and damp circuit are the headline cars, if you like, the single-seaters for the Macau Grand Prix. And we're getting ready, just about a minute away from getting the green light down in pit lane for 40 minutes. And you're right, they need to take care. They need to get into a groove. They need to have consecutive laps where they can get heat into these wet tyres, and they can actually learn good information to bring back and carry into qualifying 2 for this afternoon. Qualifying 2 is going to be so important, because if the weather forecast is right, and it's going to be drying up from about midday today, the times from yesterday are immediately going to be eclipsed.
Now, yesterday we had 1 accident in qualifying for Lure Chi. That was down at Lisboa. Did quite a bit of damage to the left front corner, and a lot of damage all round to the American driver, Jet Bowling's car. He went off just after Faraway and did a lot of damage on the left-hand side, the rear of the car. And it took quite a while, actually, to sort of dig it from underneath the barrier and then retrieve that. So those are 2 that got barely any mileage in yesterday. And this session is sort of doubly important because it's also a chance to make sure that the car feels right after the damage sustained yesterday. 40 minutes then this session will be. Just to make the point, the FR chassis is new to Macau, new to the Macau Grand Prix. It's the first ever running of the FIA FR World Cup. We're talking here about identical chassis. They're Tatuus built. They've got 2-litre Renault engines, and they now venture out onto the circuit then for our first activity of the day. You can see that it is still damp, so the first couple of laps are going to be treated with an element of respect, I am sure. But after that, let's see who the stars are, because these, as I said a little while ago, the best track surface conditions they've had all weekend thus far.
So down pit lane they go. You can see the puddles, you can see the standing water down in pit lane, and as the first bits of machinery around the circuit, since buses and cars were going around the tarmac over the course of the night between 6 and 6 in the evening, 6 in the morning. These are the normal roads of Macau, so they're full of buses and cars and mopeds going in opposite directions on the circuit. It really is quite an interesting sight when you're walking somewhere overnight to get something to eat, and you look just on the other side of these iconic yellow and black barriers, and you see traffic going in opposite directions. Everything about it just feels wrong, but for Macau it just feels so right and so normal. It's peculiar, very peculiar.
And the circuit itself remains this great mix of fast sections, tight sections, narrow sections, you name it, all thrown together to make one amazing lap. And we'll start to see a little bit more of the circuit over the course of the session as the cars now wriggle downhill. Oliver Goethe then, who was 9th in the Grand Prix last year, the man that topped both the sessions yesterday, but that really was being on the right part of the track at the right time, certainly as far as qualifying was concerned. And these FR cars, which are capable of 255 kilometres an hour in the dry, hit the circuit for the first time today. And there are, just like yesterday, parts that look wetter than others. So there's that real quandary for the drivers. And if you were thinking before the session, you know, having had a brief time in the paddock, you think, yeah, it's almost dry now. You look at bits of the circuit and far from it. That's still generating spray, isn't it?
Certainly is, yeah. So through the Solitude S's, just tipping their way up towards Police and Moorish Hill. And once they've done those two tricky right-handers that so often you see just in that background of that shot, someone getting it wrong there. It's very, very tight on the exit there and so easy to hit the barrier. They then go on to the left-hander at Donna Maria. Around the left-hander at Donna Maria takes them up towards the part that was so tricky for a few of the sessions yesterday, just tiptoeing around a very damp circuit at the Macau hairpin because it is so tight and so slow. No overtaking is allowed throughout the course of the weekend in practice, in qualifying or in racing. But the exit of Macau, absolutely vital, because that's when the circuit opens up down through Black Sands towards the right-hander Fisherman's and then onto Arbend, the final turn on the circuit, and then the run down towards the very, very fast Reservoir and the overtaking opportunity after Mandarin. Incredibly quick Mandarin at Lisboa. That's the overtaking opportunity. Let's go on board.
You're with Tuka Tappanen then, as he comes out of Mandarin down towards Lisboa. 255 kilometres an hour in the dry at this part of the circuit, fastest part of the circuit, and then you're down from 6th gear to 2nd, just under 90 kilometres an hour for Lisboa, the corner, and you sort of look for the gap in the Armco. Turn right, now that short straight towards San Francisco, and the steep climb, narrow part of the circuit this, and this is where the concentration is huge, because you've got to keep it off the wall on the right, the barrier on the left. Still climbing, and also hunting for traction. Drop downhill slightly now, bit of opposite lock needed, bit of correction by Tappanen. Big puddle on the inside, avoids the stone wall, avoids the concrete on the outside. And the precision here is absolutely astonishing, isn't it?
You know this circuit well from a point of view of undulation, because you ran it the other day.
I did.
I mean, amazingly, at about 4 o'clock in the morning, because you couldn't sleep because you were jet lagged. But what an opportunity to do, because these are the normal roads, and you got the best time of day when there was very little traffic there. But you did get a very distinct idea of just how up and down this is, this section in particular. Yeah,
you kind of think that the San Francisco hill is it, but actually
it's a hill.
But there's a lot more climb all the way after it. You know, even at Donna Maria here, you're climbing on this section on the way to the Macau hairpin. When you go downhill, you do know you're going downhill, but it only really starts to drop about now. First gear, through the Macau hairpin. 38 kilometres an hour. Bear in mind, you've touched 255 early on in the lap, then you're down to 38 kilometres an hour around the hairpin. Speed building again now, and about the next right-hander coming out of Fisherman's, the road sort of opens up again. You get to a much wider part of the circuit here. Tappenden again a little bit sideways, but now the drivers can really push. And our bend is another quick right-hander you're coming up to, but we had people in the wall yesterday because that kind of tricks you. You think it's wider and faster than it is. Tappenden to the line, and let's see what that lap time is going to be. The road is still wet. He's fastest. It is a 2 minutes 38.126. And the commitment is still absolutely huge, isn't it? Because now tyres are a bit warmer. He knows where the grip levels are, and he's going to push on for another good lap here.
Yeah, this is great. Riding on board over the course of a whole lap around the gear circuit. What a treat that was. Yeah, very, very committed as well, because that was the first of the flying laps. That was the first lap after coming out from pit lane and getting things underway, finding out where the puddles are going to be around the circuit. That was their first chance, really.
But others behind have gone even quicker, because Ugo Ogachukwu went faster, No Leon went faster, and Teofil is now the fastest. He's on a 2:36. So as you look at the cars coming out of Lisboa, the road is drying. We're not going to get to slicks, I don't believe, in these 40 minutes. So I think we are going to be on wets all the way, but the road is getting a little bit drier, but it's never going to get to slicks.
We were sort of looking towards the GT3 cars coming out yesterday when it stopped raining and we were waiting for the circuit to dry out a bit. We thought that the big wide tyres of the GT3 cars were going to do a good job of drying out the circuit. They did do a good job. We can't rely on that today. They're not out until just after 2 o'clock this afternoon. So we've got the single-seaters, first of all, the cars we're enjoying now. We've got Road Sport Challenge, we've got GT4 cars, and the second lot of Road Sport cars. So, and incidentally, I'm going to give a quick shout-out to the Road Sports, the local Road Sports categories that we had yesterday. They were the only categories that took to the circuit yesterday over half an hour of free practice to not incur any kind of stoppage. That was impressive.
It was, because at the end of the day, the track surface was absolutely horrendous.
It was horrible.
Probably the worst of the weather all day.
Horrible.
Yeah. So the fastest driver is still Teofil Niao, who's been a Spanish F4 champion. That was last year. And Ugo Ogachukwu, the American driver, is currently third in the times, number 4, and getting a little bit closer to No Leon's pace, just up the road ahead of him. Tuki Tappenden, who we were with earlier on with the onboard, he has done an absolute best in the first sector on this lap. So Tappenden, I think, should be able to go faster. He is an FR champion already this year. He won the Middle East Championship with 5 wins. That's Ogachukwu then, third quickest. And No Leon, the driver that's second quickest, has done 2 absolute bests in sectors. You can see on the graphic there, purple sector 3, sector 4. Ogachukwu looking for traction, coming out of our bend up towards the timing line. He's down to 4th in the times. Tappenden has gone quickest on a 2:36.4. Ogachukwu second, 2:36.5.
So waiting for that final sector for Noel Leon, and goes top, so a 2:35.772, and went purple in 3 of the 5 sectors, sector 3, 4 and 5. So Noel Leon to the top of the times, having competed in FIA Formula 3 this year, and coming in 10th place, 4 podiums to his credit, and he's just gone to the top of the times, 2:35.7 for Noel Leon.
The palindromic Mexican. Ugo Ogachukwu has now done the absolute best first sector, and Alexander Alcázava, who was up the escape road at Lisboa a few times yesterday, has done the absolute best in the final sector. But we've got a yellow flag at turn 19. That is in sector 4, and that is the reason for it. Car has ground to a halt, and trying to work out. Oh, and that's Tappenden up the escape road, which is down towards Police, isn't it?
What a great view of just how tight that escape road is as well. You can just shoehorn the car in.
No, it wasn't as far as Police for Tappenden, but he's got it wrong sort of at the first third of the lap. So he's away and moving again. But and now more drama at Melco. It's all kicking off.
Well, you said, I wonder if we can get into a bit of a groove. Unfortunately not, because on the second of the quick laps, red flag is called for, and that is because not only have we got cars to recover, but we've also got now a traffic queue at the Macau hairpin. Gives chance for that car to get going, which is good news. Well, going for a little bit. But that's the real recovery that we need to do. If only we could find reverse gear. I think that's what the marshals are saying.
Yeah.
If you can get it back on your own, then and get the car back to pit lane, we can maybe get the circuit cleared quite quickly.
I think the car that was in strife was Kai Darianani's car, which was in trouble yesterday, in fact. But he's got it moving again. The other one that was the other element of that Macau hairpin issue is that the marshals aren't allowed trackside until the red flags have been flown, as I understand it. This is Tappanen in replay, just lost traction, and look at that for like an auto test precision parking. Absolutely as neat as anything up the escape road. And then I don't think he needed reverse, it was just the slope that allowed him to roll back.
Split-second decisions to get it in there.
Yeah. So if he doesn't make it to F1 out of single-seater racing, he can always go and do auto tests, can't he? Excellent.
Very effectively. Well, that's good news. So we've got Macau hairpin clear. So
yeah, I don't think anyone's actually got any damage out of all that, have they?
No, which is good news.
Yeah.
So we've got the cork out of the bottle. Everybody else can slither through at Macau.
And that's Tappanen in the replay. And the marshals looks, where's he going? And they go, look, just lets it roll back down the hill.
Yeah. Superb.
And away he goes.
Superb. Checking mirrors as you go.
Yeah.
Keep it nice and safe. Over to the left-hand side and back in the game.
So, as soon as the last car is into the pit lane, Rui Marquez, who is the race director, will be able to issue a restart time. But without really anything to clear up now, we won't be too far off that, I wouldn't have thought.
Good news, and the tyres won't have lost too much of the heat that they managed to get into the tyres. But that was the second of the quick laps that happened. All of a sudden, there were things going off all around the circuit. So, yeah, if you want to get this session into a groove, then maybe a little bit more discretion required, I think.
Now, in fairness to all of them, wet running at Macau is not that common, is it?
No, very, very rare. I remember so few occasions that we've seen wet circuit, particularly all the way around. I do remember a few years ago waiting for the qualification race. The delay was to the start of the race because water had collected in the sort of tarpaulin roof of this grandstand structure just next to the grid, and all of a sudden quite a lot of water came off the roof and down onto the grid area, but that was just water in really one part of the circuit.
Right.
It wasn't all the way around the circuit.
So the teams can reflect, for the moment at least, on the fact that they don't have any damage to sort out. There's another of the Red Bull back drivers, Enzo Deligny, down the pit lane for RHGP. Enzo Deligny, who is making his Macau debut, 12th in the FR European Championship. Tuka Tappanen comes in, the FR Middle East champion, 3rd in the European, and he, again, talking about the number of junior drivers we've got in this, he's part of the Ferrari Driver Academy. You've got people here that are not only for Ferrari or Red Bull, but McLaren as well. Oliver Goethe, another of the Red Bull juniors we've touched on, I think, already number 1. So the links to Formula 1 teams still common, and we made the point earlier that FR is new to Macau, but it does, if you like, recreate the spirit, driving back in a way to how you had the early days of Formula 3, drivers coming from different championships all together for one shootout.
It was always like the end of term party for Formula 3 championships around the world, and that's how it was seen for many years. In recent years, we've enjoyed a feeling like that from this region, from Asia, for various F4 championships, because F4 enjoyed some really good Grand Prix here for a few years in recent years, and I think we both agreed that the smaller, the physically smaller and nimble little F4 car looked really good on the gear circuit, didn't it?
Yeah, these cars are fractionally down on a current F3 car, but they look very similar. They are effectively an F3 chassis, and you know, to the man in the grandstand, they are exactly right. They're single-seaters, yes. They're modern single-seaters with the Halo device. And the fact that you've got people from Middle East Championships, European Championships, and Japanese teams coming back as well, because there's FR in Japan. The Toms team, incidentally, that operates the 2 cars, that's got 5 Macau Grand Prix wins to its name, so it's a very welcome returning squad. And I think the quality of the entry rather proves the point, doesn't it, that FR has been a big hit. So we await confirmation of the restart. The clock is ticking down with it being a free practice session. Last few cars have just made it back, I think. So,
only just, yeah, for Gressa.
Not far off getting things back underway. And the session will resume in 40 seconds. So just for the last ones in, time to catch your breath and out you go once more.
Which is fine, because it's still going to give us 24 minutes in this free practice session. So there is still time to get into a groove. We were just getting there, weren't we? We were just getting there. We'd just done 2 laps, the out lap and the first of the flying laps. It was the second of the quick laps that unfortunately gave us a few cars, a few incidents around the circuit, but nothing too much to worry about. And we can see, it's quite nice to see the flags over the pit lane just gently wafting in the breeze compared to yesterday when it was all a bit more dramatic with the wind, wasn't it?
Indeed. Green flag shown, the session is back underway, and some of the teams eager to get out on track first. Other teams, like the Prema squad, the Theodore Prema team, like yesterday, lagging back so they can try and be in some clear track space when they get the drivers out on the circuit. The rain, I think, is starting to fall again, though.
Looks like it, doesn't it? Yeah, just a couple of little drops on the camera lens down there, and that familiar ball of spray once again, which is not good news. So they're dealing with tricky conditions on day 1, tricky conditions on day 2. And, you know, we were talking about the fact these are young drivers at the start of their single-seater career, and many of them have been picked up by the big names of Formula 1 and taken on their driver development courses, if you like. It's the age of some of the drivers. You were just talking about Enzo Delaney, the French driver, 16 years of age, able to drive a powerful single-seater around the gear circuit with the barriers either side. What were you doing when you were 16 years old?
Oh, scale electric probably.
Yeah, that. Exactly. Yeah. 16, 17 years old. And
but these are the only roads on which they can drive.
Yes.
Because they can't drive on the public roads, but unless they're closed for a street circuit, they're all right.
Give them all a driving licence now.
Yeah.
Forget the test. This is it.
Exactly. If you could combat Macau, you passed.
Yeah.
This is the view then from on board with the Prema Racing squad. And yeah, track surface for Alex Dunn is not good, is it? The Pirelli wets cut through the water. Alex Dunn was impressive last year when he made his Formula 3 debut. He was good in the qualifying race, but then had an accident early on in the main race, so he's got a point to prove this year, and quite a few people tipping him for being the winner come Sunday afternoon.
Well, he was so impressive last year. First visit to Macau, qualified 6th, came 2nd in the qualification race, and had pretty much in the lead up to Macau, because there were big names that were racing here last year, he'd kind of flown under the radar, and then 2nd in the qualification race, everyone went, oh, okay, right, we'll look for this. Unfortunately, the Grand Prix didn't go according to plan, but back for a second bite. And
talking of bites, Kai Darianani again. He's having a torrid time this weekend.
Yes, he is, yeah.
And he's brought out the yellow flags. Looked as though he's biffed the wall once more in the Evans GP car. And hopefully that's not going to be too big an issue. It is sort of offline, but let's see if he can get it moving again. Doesn't look damaged from that angle, does it?
No. But looks to be a little bit deceptive.
Yeah,
there are much more. Oh, that was a big wiggle, wasn't it? You just realise just how much water there is when you see those plumes of spray. And visibility, if you're travelling close to the back of another car. Hang on, there is a car in there somewhere.
Over the timing line there goes Evan Gilter, and he's currently 4th in the times. Now they are effectively starting a flying lap, but how flying it's going to be given the Darianani car parked up against the wall, we'll wait and see. The yellow flag's still there. The car, as far as we are aware, not yet able to move of its own volition. No, Leon remains the fastest, and actually he's not gone back out. Now this is Darianani in the replay in the background. Slowly comes into view. Maybe there'd been contact with the wall earlier, but the car grinds to a halt. Yellow flags fly.
In the Solitude S's, which is very tight, very twisty, and you're still climbing, aren't you?
Exactly right. Red flag, second of the day, red flag shown. So the race control team give the driver time, if you like, to power down, power back up, try and move the car, get going again, but it's not to be. And so we have our second red flag of the session, and more frustration for the drivers. 40 minutes seems like a lot. It's not helped when you've got these interruptions, and of course all the outlaps take a while to get through. So even before you start a flying lap, you lose another 3 minutes just getting out of the pits and back round.
Yes, you do, and it takes a while to get back to pit lane. And bear in mind, as we've said in free practice, the clock continues to count down. So just over 19 minutes remain of this, and this isn't helpful, is it? It's not helpful. Now, the only saving grace here is that if we are to believe the weather forecast, which I do, I'm putting faith in it, because so far this weekend it has been pretty good. It's been pretty accurate, and it would say that the rain is going to stop at around about midday, so we're not going to have occasional showers as was predicted for this morning, and it's going to start to dry up. So qualifying at the end of today, well, I say the end of today, middle of the afternoon, at just before 3 o'clock, potentially is going to be dry, or at least much drier than now. So the information that they're going to glean about being out on a wet circuit might be the last time they're on a wet circuit this weekend.
Well, fingers crossed. A Macau circuit in the dry is quicker, but it's also a lot more pleasurable for the drivers. That's James Wharton, the Australian runner-up in the FR European Championship down the pit road. 18 minutes on the clock. This time it's going to be a slightly longer stoppage, though, isn't it? Because they've got to move a car.
It is, yeah. So a recovery, which they can do really quickly here. They know what they're doing. They've got such experienced teams around the circuit here at Macau that are poised and ready to go at any point. And there are recovery cranes, recovery flatbeds. There are cranes, permanent cranes on the outside of corners at strategic points around the circuit, and also mobile cranes as well. So it could be pretty quick that we get it turned around, but the important thing is that the clock continues to count down. So it's not just the cars that are running against the clock over the course of this weekend, it's also the rescue units as well.
Absolutely right. There, bearing allegiance to the Ferrari Driver Academy, is Tuki Tapanen's car, and Kai Darianani out of his car, the Evans GP entry, Mitch Evans' team, and Darianani is having, as I say, a really rotten weekend, and it ain't getting any better. So that car needs retrieving.
Competed in F4, didn't he?
Yeah.
Here at Macau, came in 10th in the race, but this weekend so far for Kai has been very troublesome.
There is Valerio Rinicella's car, the protege of Giancarlo Fisichella and Marco Ciocci. Kai Darianani, just going back to him, had a busy year because he's raced in the UAE, the British, the Italian and the Australian F4 Championship, so he's had a lot of mileage, but stepping up to a new car.
More and more that's what it's like. I remember the year that Lando Norris was doing British F4 and also competing on other weekends in Europe. He was racing pretty much every weekend.
German and Italian,
and that was the first time I'd really known that a driver was filling every race weekend. So that was not the norm then. Now it's the norm. So you pick this championship, you can do a full champion. Alex Dunn did it.
I was about to say, I'm sure he had
won the F4
similar.
championship in the UK with 1 round to go, and then was I think it was the Italian championship. He went off to compete the final round of that.
So teams.
Yeah, he came second in the Italian F4 championship and won the British. That's not bad in 1 year, is it?
No.
Goodness me.
Yeah, you need the budget to be able to do things like that. But yes, the mileage that the drivers are accruing, and of course, on the continent, you're talking about quite a lot of Formula One venues, which they want the mileage of for later in their careers. There is Kai Darianani's car then, as you can see, being retrieved. And Darianani out of the session. I don't think he'd actually got a proper lap time in, had he? He had, oh no, he'd gone to be 17th. Interestingly, we've not really had a proper lap out of Oliver Goethe. Yesterday he was in the right place at the right time to be the fastest in the qualifying session, but the red flags have been against him in FP2 here.
Yeah, they have rather.
No lap time.
But it does just make you wonder how important this free practice session is going to be if track conditions change, because they haven't had dry running so far in the now 2.5 sessions that they've had this year. And then if we get to qualifying 2 at 3 o'clock this afternoon, just before 3 o'clock local time, then if they're on dry tyres, it's going to be the first time they've been on dry tyres. So what could possibly go wrong during that qualifying session? Exactly, but that's why I keep coming back to this point about keep out of trouble, because they need to be learning the circuit here so that when they get into that qualifying session, because effectively it's going to be the only qualifying session. If it's dry, what happened yesterday is irrelevant. It's all going to come down to that one session. There are bound to be some incidents in it. So they need to be learning now, getting that confidence in, rather than going out wide-eyed in qualifying, thinking, oh, you know, it's a bit tight here, or oh, the braking point's not where I thought it was there. That's what these free practice sessions are all about. Yeah. And they're wasting the time. I know they're not doing it deliberately. It's circumstances. If somebody goes off, the rest of the field can't control that. But it's a big frustration that the learning isn't being able to be done. Let's see, because we've got 13.5 minutes still on the clock. They've got Kai Darianani's car on the back of the recovery vehicle. If we can get this back underway, let's all keep our fingers crossed that we can have no more stoppages over the last. So we've got, so at 9:48 we'll get the session back underway. It's around about a minute away from releasing the cars from pit lane. They've got to go through it all again. They are learning. They're learning a lot. They're learning a lot about having patience and not letting frustration get the better of you now. And that is something that stands you in good stead for a weekend at Macau, because these sort of sessions are commonplace in the dry, in the wet, in the intermediate settings. You've got to be ready to go when the circuit is clear to run cars again. Just had a look at the car of Lu Rei-Chi, which was damaged yesterday, but looking okay today. Oliver Goethe nearest to you there, ready to go back out in about half a minute's time. And the poncho-clad fans in the grandstand's busier today. Ponchos being given out left, right and centre when I walked in. I've collected one for you if you want one. There you go. It's not really my colour, but it's very generous of you, thank you. Oh, no, it is. Is it? Yeah, very much so, yeah. Well, beige. Yeah, they're the Hardy faithful, and still in the grandstands, eagerly awaiting the return to the circuit of the cars, which will be any second now. Green flag shown. So we're back in business, and the cars go pouring out with Oliver Goethe this time at the front of the queue, thinking, right, need to get a lap in here. But he is somebody who, having raced here before, is perhaps less concerned about losing time in free practice, because he does know his way around the circuit, whereas others are a bit rabbit in headlights. Not been here before, don't know the cars. What do I do? I know. I mean, so often we say if you've been to a circuit before, it's a massive advantage. Maybe even more so. It's amplified even more so around the gear circuit at Macau. You can't test during the year. It's only a race circuit for, in normal circumstances, 4 days per year, and even then for only 12 hours of those 4 days. Every decade, like last year, we celebrate the decades of the Macau Grand Prix. So for the 70th celebration, it was a race circuit for 6 days of the year. But these are golden minutes on circuit. Make the most of them. So with the spray still being kicked into the air, still a very wet racetrack indeed. Oliver Goethe heads the field out onto the road for the last 11 minutes of the session. And even if that goes without a stoppage, it's only going to be about 3, maybe 4 laps that they will get in. Number 2 there is Valerio Rinicella. Behind him, the third of the MP Motorsport cars of Matteo Colnaghi, who suffered some damage yesterday, actually tweaked the suspension in qualifying. They got it back, and he was able to go back out again. It was a really impressive effort by MP Motorsport. Noel Leon has gone back out this time.
So the order, we've not really touched on it, but Noah Leon from Théophile Néal second, Canato Lee third, Evan Gilter fourth, Mario Boyer fifth, then it's James Wharton, Tuka Tapanen, Ugo Ugachukwu, Enzo Deligny and Alexander Abkazova to round out the top 10. But read into that what you will. Again, it's just being in the right place at the right time, isn't it?
10 minutes to go in this final free practice session of the weekend for the FIA FR World Cup, because from this point onwards they will be in competition, qualifying this afternoon, qualification race tomorrow and the Grand Prix on Sunday. All of that to look forward to, but this is the last time that they can, inverted commas, practice, just get some experience around the circuit in these cars, and they're doing so in very, very tricky conditions. You wouldn't want to be running too close to the car in front. You can see just how much spray is being kicked up, just how it unsettles your course on this tight and twisty part of the circuit.
And Alex Dunn stuck in that traffic, so wanting to find a way through, can't do it yet. And there's a double problem really here, isn't there? A, the traffic is bad because so much of the circuit is narrow, but equally, if you are going to have the opportunity to overtake, you go offline where it's even wetter and there's even less grip available. Oliver Goethe goes through onto a flying lap with 9 minutes to go. So the clock starts for Goethe, whose brother is a very handy GT racer, drives for McLaren these days in GT3. Father Roel Goethe, occasional racer, and the man behind the amazing Gulf liveried race car collection, the Rothko collection. Right, speed building down towards Lisboa comes Oliver Goethe, and once you've nudged 255 kilometres an hour, then you have to sort of look for the gap in the barrier, and there it is, and you turn right and fire the car up towards San Francisco.
It's only a short run as well between Lisboa and San Francisco. It's difficult to get the perspective when you look at the camera angles, but when you're walking on it, you just realise, oh wow, it's one straight after another. Two challenges, and Lisboa is the ultimate overtaking place on the circuit. You've got such high speed leading up to the braking for that corner. It's such an exciting place, and with that in mind, it has the biggest grandstand I think I've ever seen anywhere. What a great opportunity to watch the racing.
Absolutely. Goethe then doing personal bests, not a surprise because he hasn't really done a lap time yet. So it's going to be interesting to see where this lap puts Oliver Goethe. 2 years ago, he was the Euro Formula Open champion for effectively an older style Formula 3 car. This year he's been racing in FIA Formula 3 and even had a go in FIA Formula 2 at the end of the season. So the lure of Macau puts him into an FR chassis for the first time, quirkily enough, even though he's raced at what you would term, I guess, a higher level, Formula 2.
Replaced Colapinto, didn't he?
That's right, yeah.
For Monza and Baku.
Yeah.
So presses on his way, twisting through those barriers. Are so close, aren't they? I do wonder what it feels like to actually be in the car. Oh dear, that's Kalagi's car.
Yeah, and that's sort of Moorish police section of the circuit, isn't it? And he's, by the look of it, gone into the barrier. I've got a horrible feeling that red flag's going to be shown again, I'm afraid.
That car cannot stay there with the cars continuing to circulate. Goethe continues on. He's going to get this lap complete, and
his first flying lap of the session, in fact.
Yeah.
Well, green flag show. So actually, Kolnagi's got it moving again. Wow. I'm delighted to learn.
That is good news.
It is, and all the teams will be quite relieved as well. So up to the timing line comes Goethe. Where is this going to put him then in relation to everybody else? He goes through and is on a 2:41.9. So outside that 14 that we have on our timing and scoring here, you've got Cooper Webster coming up towards the line as well.
Because it's wetter now than it was before,
yeah,
isn't it?
Yeah.
Much wetter. Much wetter.
So, yeah, Goethe 16th was the answer. Through goes Cooper Webster then. 17th he puts himself. Cooper Webster, another of the Evans GP drivers, and Alex Dunn in the meantime hustles on as well.
So these onboard shots are just something else, aren't they? See how close you hug the barrier. A little bit of correction coming out of the corner, and so tight. The wall on the right, the barrier on the left. You can't see where you're going yet. You can now, and you go downhill. This is where the circuit opens up. You can almost imagine this is the point at which they can breathe again.
Yeah. And you can hear off the engine note that the speed is building all the time.
It's wonderful.
There's another fast right coming up here. And now it's a nice wide section of the circuit as Alex Dunn gets sideways and gets perilously close to the barriers on the outside. Slow car on the right, easily negotiated down towards our bend. There's a yellow flag at Lisboa. And 5 minutes on the clock. Here comes Alex Dunn heading up towards the line. He will break the beam in a moment, and the lap is going to be a 2:39. That puts him 12th fastest, 2:39.005. And up the escape road, by the look of it, has gone Mari Boyer, but he's able to rejoin. So that should be the drama over at Lisboa. It is. Green flag, all is good. The crane you can see there, not needed yet.
It's poised and ready for action, but on board with Alex Dunn, you could see the amount of little moments there were caused by these areas of standing water.
It's coming into his bogey corner of last year, but that on board really illustrates how difficult a corner it is, because you just can't see where it is. The road carries on and carries on and carries on, and you want to do this sort of 90 right, and it's a case of almost looking for that gap in the barrier and turning through. And when he's sitting so low, don't forget this camera angle is much higher than where the driver sits. You know, it's an incredibly difficult corner, that.
These are great onboard shots, because Alex Dunn is pushing on, really pushing on, and pushing on whilst the circuit conditions are much more tricky than they were at the start of the session. So really up against it, really pushing hard.
Up against the wall there. We had some of the GT cars yesterday skimming the barriers, I was being told this morning by some of the teams. They can do that. It's not quite so easy to do in a single-seater. Alex Dunn then, McLaren Driver Development Programme member, British F4 champion 2 years ago, second in GB3 last year. Tough year this year in FIA Formula 3, though, only got 14th. And as he comes now from Moorish towards Police, brakes, turns right. No, he doesn't. He's up the escape road, has to do a Tappanen and park the car up the escape road. Whew. Now, has he kept the engine running? Don't think he has. So you could see him there. He lost traction, couldn't make the corner. He has got it moving. And fair play to Alex Dunn. He didn't fight it. He knew instantly, not going to make it. There's the escape road. And so now, red flag is being shown. Now, is that for Dunn or is that for somebody else? Either way, he's got the car moving. But there's something else, I fear, that has happened, and I would be surprised if that's going to... No, session will not be resumed. Race director has taken the words. That's it, because it will take more than the 2 minutes remaining to get whatever the incident is clear. Session will not be resumed. So, what have we learned? We've learned it's wet.
And that may well be the last time that they go around the gear circuit this weekend in the wet.
Now, that's partly the reason for the stoppage. There's bodywork on the road, and if there's bodywork on the road, there's a car somewhere that is no longer connected to it. That's the same part of the circuit, isn't it? The Solitude S's, I think, where Darinani had his dramas.
It was, yeah.
But there's a car somewhere connected, or no longer connected to that bit of bodywork. But it's related to it.
And it's right in the middle of the circuit, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm just trying to work out whether the car might be hidden sort of
just behind.
Up against the wall. But either way, the red flag flies once again. And that is the end of free practice 2.
I was doing tally marks like I did yesterday for red flags. I think we got to 3. Did I miss one? 3. 3, I think. So
that right? Yeah.
That's about right.
And here's your answer to, yes, there was a car up against the wall, and I can't tell you whose it is because it's hidden, but
it was blue. Centre
punches the wall, throws the front wing onto the track. We'll try and get to the bottom of who that was. So then, Noel Leon from Théophile Nial and Kenato Lee third is the order. And the session will not be resumed, but it does mean that qualifying 2 is going to be absolutely fascinating later on what we are teeing up to be a dry circuit. Let's just look at the order. Noel Leon from Théophile Nial, Kenato Lee, Evan Gilter, and then Mari Boyer, and James Wharton 6th. Tuka Tappanen only 7th in the end from Ugo Ugochukwu and Enzo Delini. Alexandra Abkhazova rounding out the top 10. 11th, Rintaro Sato from Cooper Webster, the Oracle Red Bull Esports driver. Alex Dunn 13th from Matteo De Paolo and Oliver Goethe 15th. Then Freddie Slater, who we've not really seen the best of yet this weekend. Valerio Rinicello was ahead of Rashid Taheri, and then Jin Nakamura was next. Jet Bowling was 22nd after his damage of yesterday, and no time recorded by Mattia Kolnagi, nor, interestingly, by another driver that's a possible winner, Dino Beganovic, who was here last year and is highly rated, but Beganovic, again, in trouble. So, that's the end of free practice 2. Qualifying, we will look forward to later in the day for the FIA FR World Cup drivers.